Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
So thank you for coming today. We've had two practices in the last 2 months. So our practice for Ango, and especially for November, was gratitude. And gratitude practice is a very, very potent practice if you do it regularly. And then in our mindful medicine group, which meets once a week on Wednesday nights, our theme has been gifts for December. So everybody loves gifts and is looking forward to getting gifts. Although at my age, I don't want any more gifts. It's funny how when you get to be our age, all the things that you collected, which were treasures, are now a burden. And then also maybe your kids don't want them, so what do you do with them? So the word gift, I looked it up, and it comes from the Old Norse word gift, which means something given. It also means a talent or a special ability or good luck. So if you're given a gift, especially unexpectedly, that you would say, oh, that was great luck. And so then it came into, from Old Norse, it came into English, Old English. It's used as a noun and also as a verb, to gift. I gifted this. It started being used as a noun in the 12th century and then as a verb in the 1500s. And it's different from the word present. Present has several meanings too, right? But present refers to a material object usually, but gift can be much wider. It doesn't have to be a tangible thing that you're given. It could be something you manifest, that you have gifts, personal gifts. So in our mindful medicine group, we actually asked our physicians what is their particular gift within medicine that people might say to them, gosh, you're so good at that. Or would you help me with this because you really know how to do this? And it was very interesting. We had one person does all medicine remotely online for the VA. So she lives in Texas, but the people she serves in the VA are in North Carolina. So Zoom is a gift, right? Zoom has been a gift to us since COVID began and enabled us to do all kinds of things that we couldn't possibly do without Zoom. And now we've continued using the gift of Zoom. But her particular gift, she said her nurses are in North Carolina, and they will put a stethoscope on the patient's chest, and she can hear it in Texas. And there's also an otoscope to look in the ear, and she can see in their ears, and then in their eyes. And then she says she uses the cell phone camera light, the flashlight on the cell phones, and has the patients shine it in their mouth. And she said it gives you a beautiful view of the throat, better than the lights that we have in medicine. So. But her gift is she's arranged, her nurse said, your personality is there. You're really there with the patients. And so what she's done is she's arranged it so her keyboard is here and she learned to type without looking. And then her screen is here. And so she's always looking at the patient, even though she's taking notes. And those of you who have maybe received some medical care recently, notice that often the computer's over there and you're over here and the provider's not looking at you, which is a big problem in medicine. And so we work on it in mindful medicine to at least sit down and talk to the patient face to face and maybe take their hand, shake their hand or something. So all these little gifts of touch and attention. So that was her gift. And then was an anesthesiologist who also works for the VA in person in Portland. And he said that he's often called in when there are difficult conversations. And he likes to do these difficult conversations. And they're usually about somebody coming forward to have surgery who may not survive the surgery. And so the surgeon and the anesthesiologist are a little conflicted about should we really go ahead with this surgery. And some people want to go ahead regardless of the risk of dying, and other people would like to live some longer time, maybe, not die on the operating table, and maybe live a longer time, but be ill or be handicapped during that time. So he's the person who can sit down and say, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the risks, and it's your choice, but what choice do you want to make? And so other people will often go to him and say, could you go and talk to the patient about this? I don't know how to do it. So those are examples of non-material gifts, and all of us have some kind of gift. For instance, one of our physicians is a master crocheter, and she makes all these amazing animals and gives them away. So the gift doesn't have to be huge, it can be small. My son's mother-in-law has crocheted hundreds of hats for kids who have cancer, and their heads are bald, and so they're fancy with flowers and things, and she gets pictures of the kids, and they're very grateful for these hats. Yesterday, some of us went out to see a large property, 700 acres of land, outside of Battleground, that it seems will be given to two of our ordained who trained here and now are out on their own, Soten and Shanae. So we started here with 20 acres, and then we just added 25. So we have 45 acres, which is a huge property to maintain. Well, they are probably going to be given 700 acres of land, and a farmhouse and several other outbuildings. The land was in a nature conservancy for a number of years, and then they couldn't support that financially, so they were looking for someone to gift it to, and so, by whatever kind of fortune, good fortune, and sometimes the Dharma does, if you're really sincere about your Dharma teaching, these things just happen. So they were contacted, and they went to look at it and decided they would like to take it on. So it's an amazing, amazing gift, amazing gift. Finding this land and this building that became Great Vow was also an amazing gift. And we had been looking for several years. And then I had given up, which is often giving up is sometimes part of the process. Because if you're putting too much energy in or anxiety in, sometimes that blocks things from coming forward. That could be helpful. But Hogan didn't give up, and then he came with we had a real estate friend who said, there are these two school properties out in Klatskanai. So there's this school, and then there's another one at the edge of Klatskanai, which is only on 1 acre of land and is on the highway, has the same plan, but we chose this one. And the school district needed to sell it because it was deteriorating pretty fast. So that was an amazing gift, and look how it's developed over the 22 years that we've been here, and how many people have come through and taken, rejoiced in this gift and found value in this gift that we were given. About a year ago, one of our colleagues, so it's a Zen teacher about our age who teaches in Berkeley, and who was one of the developers of the Buddhist Peace Fellowship, which has done a lot of wonderful peace work around the world. His name is Alan Sanauki, and he went into the hospital for routine surgery and had a heart attack before the surgery. And he was in a coma, and it was very unclear whether he would come out of this coma, but amazingly, even though things were looking really grim, he gradually came out of the coma. It started with looking his wife in the eye. She said we had hours of gazing at each other, which we never had time for in our whole lifetime. And then he could move his eyes and blink his eyes, and then gradually he was able to talk and so on. He did not regain the ability to walk, and he was on dialysis. But he came out of a coma and lived for a year more. And he was able to be part of his daughter's wedding. So that was a gift of an extra year that most of us thought he wouldn't have. So if you had a gift of an extra year, to think of that. We used to, when we did retreats, which we still do, on preparing for your own death, meditate on, what if you had only 1 year to live? What would you do during that time, and what would drop away? Would you go on vacations to places you hadn't been to? Would you go see family? What would you do if you had a year left to live? What would become suddenly important? So he had that year, and now he's in hospice and probably has only a few more days to live. When we're given amazing gifts, like a place to develop a Zen center or 1 more year to live, when we thought we were going to die, we spontaneously feel grateful. Spontaneously, gratitude comes up. And as I mentioned, our theme for November was gratitude practice. And so here at the monastery and down at the temple downtown, everybody had a little journal, a tiny little notepad, little booklet, and every night wrote 5 things they were grateful for. So back to gifts for December. So I'd like to ask you all the question, what gifts have you been given in your life? For example, and take some time to ponder this. So did you have a loving grandmother, for example, when maybe there was alcoholism in your family, but your grandmother was your source of comfort? Or an uncle, maybe, who helped you survive difficulties in your childhood or teenage years or college years? Or a special mentor in whatever you were training in as a career? Or a 4-H leader who taught you to sew or to raise a goat? Or maybe you were able to travel abroad. Maybe your family took you abroad and you were able to see parts of the world you wouldn't have seen on your own. And what did you learn from that gift? So if you would just ponder for a few minutes, what gifts am I aware I was given during my lifetime, special gifts? And what did I learn from those gifts? So it could be a material gift, but probably it's a non-material gift. So anyone? Anything pop up? I guess we should use the microphone. Yes, Anne. We're going to get the microphone to you.
I'm grateful for my high school English literature teacher who opened up the world to me and taught me the responsibility I have to use my mind.
And where were you in high school?
Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma.
Yeah, her name was Mrs. Turk.
Mrs. Turk.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to all say, thank you, Mrs. Turk. Anybody else? Any gift that you were given?
I was given the gift of being born in the United States and given the opportunity to make choices about everything really in my life. So,
Isn't that an amazing gift? When you hear about what's happening in Afghanistan and women can't even speak when they go out of the house and are covered head to toe, and yeah, when we hear the news about what's happening around the world, we're so grateful for the riches we have been given here. Yeah. Anybody else? Any gifts? Mira?
the one that I'm thinking of right now is that both of my parents were very creative people and wanted to raise me to be a capable and creative person. And particularly, like, my dad, I think, had expected that I was going to be a boy, and then just treated me with the same level of, like, freedom that he would have given to a son, in terms of teaching me how to use tools and how to go camping. And you know, my mom taught me all kinds of crafting things, and, like, just how to be confident and capable in the world. And I really appreciate that.
And all of those things give you joy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So parents who taught her to be creative and to do things that maybe if you'd had brothers, you might not have been able to do. You know, I had 2 sisters, and my dad was just like, yeah, great, okay, whoever we've got, you know, we'll teach them. Very, very supportive. There was never, and I don't know if I'd had brothers, would that have been different? I don't know. Anybody else? Gifts?
Why don't you give the microphone to Hunter?
Hunter, I met your grandmother. She cut my hair in Claxon night. She said, oh, you live at the monastery? I said, yes. She said, my grandson loves to come to the monastery. I said, what's his name? She said, Hunter. I said, oh, we love Hunter. Okay, gifts.
I was going to say about my grandparents, about how my grandparents on my mother's side just taught me a lot about what it means to be loved and how to love.
The grandmother that I met was very loving and really loved you a lot. And I told her to come and take a tour sometime of the monastery. Thank you, Hunter.
I'm grateful for my grandparents on my mother's side and the life that I have with 4 brothers, no sisters. The grandparents on my mother's side were the only grandparents I knew, and they were very spiritual oriented and practicing very diverse spiritual practices. Yes.
And did you go along with them to some of these?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
And it was so natural to me, but most of my young life was my communication, because it was way ahead of society in the United States. So besides my playing with dolls and things like that, as I grew, I couldn't tell them the things like I experienced just naturally, because it wasn't, I guess, time for the rest of the world. But I'm very grateful for that, because it was really the most full experience being born, and I was very accepted. My experiences.
Accepted, and your experiences, your spiritual experiences, accepted and cultivated, it sounds like.
Yes, by my family.
By your
but
family.
Not by society, general society. So
Right.
I didn't have that camaraderie outside the family. But they supported it very much.
Wonderful.
Yeah. The experiences I had just naturally as a child.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for wearing your Santa hat. Brings a little spot of cheer to it keeps you warm.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Dojin, what are you grateful for that you received from in your life?
I'm grateful for my parents being so open to the different things I've been interested in, like living here, and supporting me in doing that, encouraging me to follow my own path and not forcing me to live a life that I didn't feel was for me. So I'm very grateful for that.
Did they know when you were skipping school to go surfing?
Eventually.
Thank you. So what are the gifts of meditation practice? You've all come here and given yourself the gift of meditation practice. And what are the gifts of meditation practice? Just ponder that for a few minutes. Anybody?
For me, meditation creates spaciousness within my nervous system, makes it so I'm able to hold more. So whatever comes to me throughout the day, I feel like I have the space to hold it and move through it more fluidly.
So when something comes towards you and you know it's a little bit energetic, what do you do? How do you use meditation to take care of that?
I typically do breath work, which is a form of meditation. So just taking the time to breathe makes it so I can move through whatever's coming to me in a way that feels more genuine and how I want to move through it rather than just acting emotionally. Yeah.
So there's a kind of startle reflex often when things come towards us that unexpectedly, and a tendency to withdraw. We all do that, right? So if you have something that's an alternative, like breath, that puts you in the present moment and switches you over from sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic nervous system.
Absolutely.
So you're calmer and you can be more present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Gifts of meditation practice.
I would say mental flexibility, or I would say flexibility of story. That I don't have a trapped sense that I am any particular thing. And I used to have a very trapped sense, this is my past, this is what I'm like, this is that everything is flexible, and some things may be more entrenched or stuck, but they're only stuck to the extent that I have the belief that they're stuck, that I believe that I am that thing or whatever. And over again have found many things that I thought were me were optional or flexible. And so now I have that knowledge that I don't have to stick to any story that I have ever had about myself. And if it's really harmful or it's made me feel stuck, I have a way through that, and it doesn't have to be a permanent thing.
Do you find that some of the old stories arise, and then what do you do?
I do. It's interesting when maybe a very old one has resurfaced, and it's like it'll catch me off guard when I'm in the middle of something else. And if it's one of the really old ones, one that I've really done a work on, it's just sort of like funny. It's like, oh yeah, remember when I used to totally believe I was a I couldn't stand being cold, or this is a very easy one to talk
Yeah.
about. I remember when I thought that if I was cold, I would be miserable, and people were forcing me to be cold, especially when I lived here. It was like, oh my gosh, making me be cold all the time, and I'm never going to be able to relax because I have to be cold all the time. What I do is if it's maybe a little bit more of a stuck one, if I remember to do it, stop. I actually pay attention to the physical sense of self, like a picture of Ian, a felt sense of Ian, of me, that seems attached to whatever that story is. And then I just look at it really intensely until it kind of dissolves away, and maybe it comes back and it goes and it comes back and it goes and it goes. But just trying to see it's not a real thing. There's nothing there if I really look at it, and if it's not really there, then I get to choose whether I act out of it or not.
Mm-hmm. See, this to me is one of the most amazing gifts of our practice, which is when we can shift from thinking to awareness, or the picture he was holding of, I'm a person who can't do this or must do this. And of course, having a baby shifts a lot of those ideas too. But when we have those fixed ideas and we have the perspective of meditation, we can step back from the thoughts or the pictures in the mind, and then we have choice. So we step back from thinking to awareness, and we widen the scope of what we're aware of, and that awareness gives us choice. So that's one of my mottos is choice, in this case from thinking mind to awareness mind, gives us, awareness mind gives us choice, which gives us freedom, which is a very important part of liberation from suffering. So that was a good example. As being a parent, has practice helped you, being new parents? Yeah? Do we have a volunteer for the microphone?
We haven't done very much seated zazen in the last 11 months. But I think having the foundation of practice has helped me remember that things change, and that even if something's difficult, it's not going to be that way forever.
Forever.
Mm-hmm. And I think the most important part of it for me has been remembering to really be present with heart, like whenever I think about it, that knowing that he's, this is the smallest he will ever be today, mm-hmm. and that relatively soon he won't want to be hanging out with me all the time. And so really trying to use practice to be present for joy and not just to get through difficulty.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is something you can take home and contemplate. What gifts do I have to offer to the world? And it can be anything. I mean, the people who come and pump out our septic tank, I am so glad that they have that gift to give us. It's smelly, messy work, and they're just cheerful about it. It's fantastic. So the gifts of meditation practice, I listed some of them for myself, is 1, to be able to see what our mind is up to. 2, not to be at the mercy of our minds. 3, to see whether our thoughts are causing us difficulty, suffering, or causing us suffering or other people suffering. And to have choice about the content of our mind. So everybody got a copy, I think, of the Sutra on Cultivation of Thought. So this is related to the Buddha's enlightenment. And the Buddha said that before he became enlightened, which we celebrate on December 8th, we just had a retreat celebrating the Buddha's enlightenment. Before he became enlightened, this occurred to him. Suppose I divide my thoughts. So he had awareness and perspective on his thoughts into two classes. So let's just read this together. Sutra on the Cultivation of Thought. Before I was enlightened, it occurred to me, suppose I divide my thoughts into two classes. I will set on one side thoughts of sense desire, thoughts of ill will, thoughts of cruelty, and thoughts of envy. I will set on the other side thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts of compassion, and thoughts of sympathetic joy. What thoughts lead to my affliction, my obstruction, obstruction of others, obstruction of wisdom, cause difficulties, and lead away from nirvana? Bhikkhus, whatever a bhikkhu frequently thinks and ponders all, that will become the inclination of his mind. If he frequently thinks and ponders on thoughts of sense desire, thoughts of ill will, thoughts of cruelty, and thoughts of envy, then he has abandoned the thought of renunciation to cultivate a heart of sense desires, a heart of ill will, a heart of cruelty, and a heart of envy. If he frequently thinks and ponders on thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts of compassion, and thoughts of sympathetic joy, then he has embraced the thought of renunciation to cultivate a heart of loving kindness, a heart of compassion, a heart of sympathetic joy. Then he dwells serene in equanimity, at home in the divine abidings. So this speaks exactly to choice, the choice that our meditation practice gives us, and what exactly what Ian was talking about, to realize my mind is going down a path which is not a helpful path for me or for others. And I'm sinking into suffering, and suffering, is a big word, but there are, the original translation is friction. So when we detect that friction, before it becomes massive suffering, then we have a choice. My mind is going down an old rutted path, which is not going to lead to happiness for me or people around me. And I have a choice, and it takes a lot of practice to recognize what's going on and lift your mind out of that rut and take on a different practice. So the practices that are mentioned here are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and then equanimity. Those are the four divine abidings. So if we live with loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity as choices in our life, that's a heavenly life. It's called the divine abidings because it changes our experience of living as a human being in a world that presents many, many challenges. So this, in a way, is the most amazing aspect of what our practice can do. We also do retreats on one of the divine abidings, on loving kindness. So we do a week-long retreat, and then we do some weekend retreats. And that retreat is very, very popular. And Bancho does loving kindness practice online every Friday night. And so it's like a dose of vitamins, a dose of vitamin loving kindness that people can get every week online by joining him. And it becomes a foundational practice. Anything that we keep practicing is then accessible to us when we need it. And that's a blessing of our practice. And we don't have to go read a book or even listen to a podcast, but if we practice regularly, it becomes integrated into who we are. And one of the things I say is, there used to be an ad where somebody's drinking a Coke and then they go, I could have been drinking a V8. I could have had a V8. And so in our practice, it's like, I'm suffering. I could be doing loving kindness practice. It's like that, duh. So I want to just to close, I want to do a brief exercise with your hands. And this is it's a switch from looking at things with your mind to looking at things with your heart, to looking at things through the lens of loving kindness. So I want you to hold up your hands, and young guys, young people, young girls, you can do this. Hold up your hands and look at them with your mind. So see what your mind notices about your hands. And you can turn them over, look at the other side. What does your mind notice about these strange phenomenon that we call our hands? Okay, now I'd like you to move your attention from your head, which is where we usually think our mind is, and move your attention down to your heart. And so imagine that there are eyes in your heart. You're looking with the eyes of your heart. So now look at your hands again, the eyes of your heart. How does your heart see these strange phenomenon that we call hands? You can turn them over and okay. Did you notice any difference? If so, raise your hand. We'll call on you. So we have some people right here, 3 people here. Notice the difference?
So, looking at them the first time around, just with my eyes,
Your mind.
my mind, I saw wrinkles
Yes.
and skin that is just more fragile looking. When I
Yes.
looked at them with my heart, I saw them as gifts. That these hands allow me to tie my shoes. They allow me to feed myself. They allow me to use them when I'm giving somebody a hug when they're having a tough time.
Thank you. Anybody else? What did you notice? Difference between looking at your hands with your mind and looking with your heart?
When I used my mind, I saw a lot of crooked joints. And when I looked at them with my heart, I just felt gratitude for the fact that they still serve me so well in spite of the way I see them.
Let's see, Pat, did you have your hand up? Yeah? Yeah? I thought you raised your hand.
Well, I would just reiterate what people have already said, that when I looked with my mind, I would see the color variation or the wrinkles or the age spots or those sorts of things, but with my heart, much more enjoyable experience to look to see all the things I can do with my hands to help people, to comfort people, things I can do practically to cook and clean and sew and those sorts of things, but I'd much rather look with my heart.
Maybe a couple people on this side?
With my mind, I wasn't entirely negative. There was a little negativity, but I was also like, oh, how fun. So I was thinking about, oh, I can really stretch them. And so there was actually some gratitude to begin with. But then when I went to my heart, I had my eyes closed, and then I imagined opening my eyes, in my heart eyes. And it was just like this thank you. And that was it, just thank you. So just a little bit deeper from the heart. Yeah.
Thank you.
when I was looking at my hands with my mind, I saw the physical, visual aspects of it, old scars and cuts and dirt stains and the things I need to do to maintain my hands to keep them functioning. And when I looked with my heart, I saw capability and the potential within myself and the limitless nature of that.
Isn't that interesting? That's a very simple exercise, but I think it's quite profound. And in Asia, heart and mind are the same. It's the same character, Shin. And if you ask, I don't know if it's true anymore, but it used to be, if you asked an Asian person, where are you in your body? They would go heart or belly. But we would go here in the Western world. So I really recommend trying this out and practicing this. So especially if you notice, maybe you're talking to somebody or somebody new comes in, that the mind does this evaluation, right? And it's maybe beginning to think of a counter-argument to whatever they're saying, and you realize, that's my mind seeing this situation. And then, as you listen, you switch to your heart and see what happens, and observe with your heart and relate with your heart. And sometimes this is really serious practice for me, sometimes I imagine that I've opened a little channel between my heart and their heart, and that helps open up seeing with the heart. Yeah. So this also gives us choice. We're not driven by our judgments, and we're raised to judge. So I notice when somebody brand new comes in as a new resident here, and I meet them for the first time, my mind is just like, okay, what color hair do they have? How are they dressed? And makes a judgment. And then I just go like, stop it. You haven't even spoken to this person yet. And then I make a point of sitting down and getting to know them. Like, where were you born? And did you go to church? Did you have any spiritual upbringing? And what are your talents? And did you go to college? And what did you major in? Just asking about their life. And it changes things completely, because I start to see them as a complete and very rich human being. That's looking with the eyes of the heart. So you have two practices now to carry with you. One is when you notice that your thoughts are headed down the old ruts that will cause you or others suffering, to pick it up and practice loving kindness. And then you have a very practical way of practicing loving kindness, which is with your hands, or do that same exercise with anybody you encounter when you see your mind going into thoughts and therefore judgments. Open up the heart and see with the heart, relate with the heart. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.